Hey, what's going on, everybody? Caleb here again. Coming at you with another Iceberg video, the Horrifying SCPs Iceberg. Now, this is going to be a little different than most SCP videos because most SCP videos hit the most popular or the most quote-unquote mainstream SCPs out there. But I have been involved, quote unquote, aware of SCPs for a long time now, so I know a lot of good ones. So don't expect to see, like I have 173 on here and 096 on here because I personally find them pretty scary, but don't expect 049. Don't expect the reptile that's hard to kill. Don't expect the red disc, all that stuff that you've probably already heard of. Couple other things before I get into the video. There will be no SCP-001. I've talked about this a little bit on one of my backrooms icebergs. I personally hate the SCP-001 classification because, if you're not aware, the SCP-001 classification, because it's number 1, they want to put something really, really good and unique, and I'm assuming terrifying in that position. And so there's about 20 different proposals for what SCP-001 could be, and they're all pretty damn good. That being said, I think it's absolutely stupid because they have all these really good, well-written horror objects or characters, but they're locked behind this number just because they want to be this number, whatever it is. And so it's up to your headcanon which one you think should be SCP-1. But in my opinion, they should all have their own unique numbers because they're all really good. They're better than the majority of the SCPs on the wiki. But, they're all behind this stupid number. And, yeah, and most people, at least in my experience, regard the Gate Guardian as the official SCP-001. So at this point, I figured they might as well just make it SCP-001, but, all this is just my opinion, but SCP-001 will not be on the iceberg. That's the point I was trying to make here. Another thing I would like to address at the beginning is content warning. There will be some adult-themed SCPs in this video. There will be some very dark stuff, some very gory stuff, some sexual stuff. Just be aware of that. This is not a video for kids, and it's more so of the sense of me just saying the F word and cursing and making inappropriate jokes. It's actually some pretty dark stuff that's going to be talked about here in this video. Alright, now I'm going to do a very, very brief summary on what exactly the SCP Foundation is. I'm assuming that 99% of the people watching this video already know, but in case you're that 1% that doesn't know, here it is. The SCP Foundation is a multi-government agency that is dedicated to securing, containing, and protecting anomalous objects, entities, and locations. Hence, SCP: Secure, Contain, Protect. Once an object has been contained, it is placed into 3 classes right here. Safe class is as it sounds. They know how to contain it, but it could also be world destroying. But because they know how to contain it, they've labeled it as safe. If all you have to do is hit a button every day to make this object not destroy the world, pretty safe, pretty easy to contain that. Now, Euclid is a little different. Euclid is an object may be somewhat harmful. It may be extremely deadly, and there are ways to contain it, but the ways are not always foolproof, or it's kind of tricky to contain it. And so that's where the Euclid comes in. Now, the Keter is the most... it's not the hardest to explain, but there's a lot of variables involved in Keter, I think, and a lot of the really good SCPs have a lot of variables involved that are labeled as Keter. But the best way I can explain it is there is one SCP that is a chocolate cake that replicates, and if I remember correctly, somebody has to eat the chocolate cake every X amount of time, say every hour, or it's going to duplicate itself. So someone has to go in and eat this chocolate cake that has just duplicated itself every hour. If that doesn't happen, then this chocolate cake could continuously duplicate and spread over the whole world. Now, because they don't know how to stop this duplication, it is labeled as a Keter object. You would assume it's safe because it's pretty easy, but no, because they cannot stop it, it is Keter. And that's kind of the best way I can explain it. There's other videos explaining, introduction to the SCP Foundation more. But like I said, I'm sure most of you are aware of that, aware of what SCPs are, how all that stuff works. So let's get started. All right, starting from the top, the uh-oh tier. If you see one of these SCPs, I guarantee you're gonna go, uh-oh. Alright, let's start with the most well-known one and one of my personal favorites, SCP-173. I'm sure everybody knows about this one, but I'll go over it very briefly. SCP-173 is a statue. It is that thing right there in the corner by the window. You must maintain eye contact with this statue at all times in its presence. If you ever take your eyes off it, even if you blink, the statue will move towards you at very fast speeds. If it comes into contact with you, it will break your neck. Or something else. They might have changed it, but it's probably going to go for the neck. Yeah, that's the SCP in a nutshell. It is the most popular one. I think it's pretty terrifying. If you haven't played the SCP Containment Breach games or any of the games that contain SCP-173, you might think that doesn't sound very scary, but just go give one of those games a try and you'll see what I'm talking about. SCP-046, otherwise known as the predatory holly bush. This SCP is a bush or plant, and what it does is it draws prey in using hallucinogenic spores, I guess is what you would call it. And once prey is in, whether they be animal or human, it then proceeds to eat or dissolve the prey using stuff such as black mold or other plants of the like. And that is the SCP in a nutshell. Gross. SCP-2123. Now, a lot of these SCPs are going to be very lengthy in description, as well as incident reports and addendums and stuff like that. I'm going to be fairly brief when discussing these. If you don't like my description of them, tough. Look them up for yourself. Yeah, I mean, a lot of these have had videos made on them already, but if I gave a full in-depth description for every SCP, this would be like a 30-hour video. So, SCP-2123 is a radiation cannon, basically. And what this does is it shoots out iodized radiation, I believe is what it said, at 100 GY/hour, whatever that means. I'm no radiation scientist, so yeah, I'm just assuming it's bad, and there is no way to stop this cannon from producing 100 GY/hour of radiation. So, yeah. And people who are working on this, if they suffer some kind of radiation thing, probably a radiation sickness or somewhat, they have to be swapped out for somebody new. And I'm assuming you can't just use everyday run-of-the-mill, fresh off the street hires for this job. You probably need some kind of someone who knows a damn thing about radiation, you know, with a degree and a background and all that good stuff. So, you know, how many of those people are there really that you can just throw in here to get radiation sickness all the damn time? And yeah, so yeah, good stuff. SCP-023. SCP-023 is a canine. That canine right there in the picture. If any person or member of a person's family comes into eye contact with SCP-023, they or some member of their family will die within a year. There's a few variables that go into this, but the mortality rate, I believe, is 100%. So don't make any eye contact with dogs that you don't know. Alright, that's your best bet. SCP-1440. SCP-1440 is pretty damn cool in my opinion. He is also known as the Old Man from Nowhere. That is the last known photograph of him. Every time SCP-1440 comes into contact with people or enters a somewhat populated area, bad things follow. For example, the Foundation was at one point trying to contain him in one of their sites, and the failsafe nuke just spontaneously went off. 1440 did not die, but I'm sure a lot of other people did. Everywhere he goes, bad stuff follows. You could call him, in a sense, the Grim Reaper, or the most unlucky man on the planet, whatever you will. One good thing is 1440 is aware of his abilities, and so he tries to isolate himself from people best he can. The Foundation was at one point following him and trying to contain him. I believe they've since then stopped because of obvious reasons. And yeah. SCP-2373. SCP-2373 is a hairy torso. And this torso is inanimate until somebody comes across its line of sight, at which point it will animate and move at such a rapid pace that the human eye is incapable of comprehending the movement. And once this torso moves to a person, it will mimic that person's movements despite not having legs, and I don't believe it has arms or a head either. So yeah, it will continue to mimic said person's movement until an outside third party observes the torso, at which point I believe it becomes inanimate again. So it's kind of a mild version of 173, or the ultimate frickin' jump scare. SCP-1269, otherwise known as Stalker Mailbox. The Volgun made a good video on this one. I recommend you go watch that. SCP-1269 is a mailbox that is living, I guess, in Massachusetts. Its anomalous properties take effect when a female moves in, at which point the mailbox will start sending her letters about how much it loves her and da-da-da-da. Now, if the female should get a new mailbox, letters will appear in that mailbox, I believe is how it goes, discussing extreme hate for the new mailbox, wanting to kill it, telling the mailbox it's nothing but a plastic piece of wood and shit. Stuff along those lines. It's quite amusing, and I recommend you take a look. SCP-354. SCP-354 is a very cool SCP in my opinion. It is a red pool located in Canada, made of, I'm assuming, blood. And what happens is various creatures not normally seen come out of it, presumably from another dimension. That's the gist of it. There was an exploration log done where several people went under. When they came up on the other side, they were in a whole new dimension, and it was very strange. I recommend looking into it for yourself, because that's as far as I'm going to go into it right now. SCP-280. SCP-280 is quite terrifying, and I'm glad I saved it for last. SCP-280 is that black shadow creature with the white eyes right there. This creature, when people are asleep, proceeds to attack them and does not stop until it has succeeded in killing them. If you were scared of the dark before, you're really going to be scared of the dark now that you've heard this. There's more to this SCP, like all these others, but that's where I'm going to stop for this one. Alright, that was the uh-oh tier. We had some kind of scary stuff here, but it's going to get pretty bad. You know, once we get to like the bottom tier, it's going to get really bad, but we'll get there. We'll get there. The fear tier. Now, I don't know any of these off the top of my head, and I don't remember putting them on this iceberg, so this will be an adventure for me too, reading these off and explaining them. SCP-029. SCP-029 is basically the female John Wick. She uses anything she can as a weapon, however she has an aversion to blood, so she typically strangles her victims. She holds extreme hostility towards everyone and typically kills people who try to interview her, therefore interviews are difficult to do. And I believe her reactions are 4 times that of a normal human's. So that's her in a nutshell. SCP-122. SCP-122 is a children's nightlight that, when powered, is fairly normal. When unpowered, however, a blackish mass begins to appear from the nightlight's location, and then humanoid entities that are basically a black shadow appear, and they attempt to bring whomever is within the nightlight and sleeping to their realm, I guess you would call it. There's not too much said about what they do besides that, if they're, extremely hostile, violent, stuff like that. But I think that's a pretty scary image for a kid to wake up to. SCP-3125. So on the Iceberg, I accidentally put this at SCP-3225, so my bad. I'll leave a comment when I actually post the image of the iceberg. But this SCP, is very complex and difficult to explain in such a short time frame. I'm going to do a quick summary. It is an out-of-universe mimetic threat. Now, what a mimetic threat is say you look at a picture of something and it curses you. That's basically what a mimetic is. You read something and it curses you. Crap like that. So this thing is that, but on a very large scale, and the damage it can do is so bad the human mind's not capable of totally comprehending it. The reason it's so high up on this iceberg is because it is so complex and advanced that I don't really have, the whole buttload of time to go into it, so I just put it up here. It's basically a threat that's so far beyond your and my intelligence that you shouldn't even try, man. Like, just pray you never have to encounter this. SCP-015-IT. This SCP is also known as the Boogeyman, and now I'm sure everybody knows what the Boogeyman is. I'm not talking about John Wick. If you don't know, the Boogeyman is a cryptid common in North America. It's about a man who attacks children in their sleep. Or not even a man, it's a tall, hairless, pale creature that attacks children in their sleep. And in most stories, it eats them. In this interpretation, the Boogeyman takes a bite of a mammal that is sleeping, typically a human, and then it sticks its tongue in and leaches out the adrenaline that is in the human. And yeah, good stuff. Kind of reminds me of the rich people drinking baby blood conspiracy to stay young. But anyways, moving on. SCP-303, otherwise known as the Doorman. SCP-303 is a pretty unique SCP. It's not a very harmful one. It is very freaking scary. If you saw that behind a door window, you'd probably shit your pants. I guarantee you would shit your pants. But if you can't really tell what that is from this picture, it is a small, scrawny humanoid entity, but its face is nothing but teeth and lips. It has no eyes, no nose, nothing like that. So it's basically just making a really weird grin at you the whole time. And like I said, it doesn't hurt you or anything. It doesn't come after you through the window, at least to my knowledge. It just sits and stares without eyes, stares with its teeth at you. And yeah, I'm scared. I'm so scared, I'm gonna move on. SCP-1155 is a pretty scary one when you really look into it. It's graffiti that can take place on any flat surface, and if you get too close to the graffiti, it will attack you and end your life within 6 seconds. And it typically starts by removing the eyes and tongue, then limbs go, then something happens with the intestines, and people usually die of shock by this point. And I guess if you don't get killed by the shock, then you'll bleed out with the remaining 2 seconds you have, and yeah, then the attack is concluded, and it takes the body away. What happens to the quote-unquote person after the attack is unknown. There have been a couple logs looking into that, but to my knowledge, they've been unsuccessful. And the graffiti is usually poorly drawn graffiti of a humanoidish creature with small arms and stuff like that. It looks like something a kid would draw. So if you see anything like that out there, just take a step back. SCP-3333. This SCP is pretty damn scary, and it hits close to home because we have a watchtower near us that looks a lot like this. This is a watchtower where if you enter and you go through the trap door, you end up in another dimension, but you won't know that until you keep going up and up and up, and eventually you're going to start seeing some weird stuff. And if you go up and up and up, then you're going to see some abnormal creatures. And there were a lot of really well written logs done about this SCP, and the Volgun did a video on this SCP, and so did Exploring series, so I recommend you check out one of those videos if you want to learn more about this one. That was the fear tier. I think it was scarier than the first one, but maybe I'm just a wuss. Let's move on. Terror tier, the terror tier. Terrifying. I'm done. SCP-096. Fun fact about me, humanoid figures with elongated limbs really frighten me. Like this movie right here from Legion, where the ice cream man grows long. Yeah, I remember watching this as a kid and it scared the bejesus out of me. Also, this scene right here is not SCP-096. I see tons of videos advertising this as 096. This is from a movie called Grave Encounters 2, and yes, it is the only good part of the movie. So SCP-096 takes my fear of humanoid creatures with long ass limbs and cranks it up to 11. The kicker about this one, if you're not aware, is if you look at his face, he will pursue you to the ends of the earth, and I do mean to the ends of the earth. There's tales of him jumping on planes. There's tales of him breaking through metal walls. There's tales of someone saw a photograph where a pixel of his face was in that photograph, and then 096 lost his shit and went after the person who saw that picture. So yeah. Stuff. It's actually a really well done SCP, and it's very interesting and very popular, so I'm not going to go into it anymore. SCP-002, also known as the living room, is a room contained in that sphere that is composed of, I don't know if it's necessarily human, but it's composed of organs and bones and tendons and inner workings of mammals, stuff like that. Yeah, it's fairly gross, so I'm not going to go too into it here. SCP-401. SCP-401 is a eucalyptus tree that has its regular plant biology replaced by human biology. For example, there is a bone vertebrae where the trunk would normally be. The branches, instead of leaves at the end, there might be leaves too, but like hands appear. And during the mating season, reproductive organs begin to grow on the hands. And the tree itself will attack females in order to mate, and we'll just stop right there. SCP-3199. SCP-3199 is a scary looking creature that is capable of laying eggs to create more of that thing right there, and just one single instance is capable of laying so many eggs that instance could make enough creatures, whatever you want to call that thing, to overthrow the population of humanity, which is a pretty big deal. So it is a Keter class SCP. There's more stuff into it, but the main scary thing about this one is how it looks and what it's capable of doing. SCP-974. SCP-974 is a creature that poses as a small humanoid child. What this creature does is it lures other kids to play with it and make nice and become friends, and it takes them to its nest which is essentially a treehouse that looks like it was made by a child. And then it eats them. And it's fairly graphic, and the really messed up thing about this SCP is the Foundation is currently containing one. In order to contain this, they take 5 to 6 poor innocent children, and they stick it in its pen. And when the SCP makes friends with one, it chows down, and that's how they keep it in containment. If it doesn't make friends with one, then they let those 6 go, and they bring in 6 more, and yeah. This is probably too little too late, but the Foundation will do anything to contain SCPs. Alright, let's move on. SCP-2030. SCP-2030 is a unique SCP in the fact that it is a television show with an anomalous host. And what happens in this show is random people are taken, kind of like a reality TV or hidden camera show, you know? Random people are taken and they're often put in anomalous situations, at which point the random innocent person shows signs of stress and panic as they're like, oh my god, what is happening? And yeah, and it's all for laughs. It is a Keter SCP because it cannot be contained because it is a television show. There's more into this one. There's 3 SCPs I can think of that are based off of a television show. This one is done very well, as is another one that I believe I put on this Iceberg, and it's a really genius way to get horror across, because, you know, there's all these horror TV shows, but it's like, well, what if one was reality, but then, you know, these people are actually getting hurt or killed? It's really a good idea from a horror perspective, so my hat's off to those authors. Alright, we got through the terror tier. The terror tier, I like the sound of that. Next up is the horror tier. Now, what's the difference between horror and terror, you may ask? I don't know. SCP-058. SCP-058 is probably one of the scariest creatures I've seen. It is a bovine heart with 4 legs attached and a stinger and some other stuff. It looks a lot like that picture there. The thing about this heart is it's incredibly fast and hostile and deadly, and it's even labeled as a Keter class because it can break containment so easily, and to my knowledge there is only one. So you might think, well, that's good, there's not a whole nest of these hearts. I think otherwise. I think this heart came from another SCP or godlike creature in the SCP universe. That creature was killed, but its heart is still alive, and that's why this SCP is so powerful. And I'll get to godlike creatures more further down the iceberg, but that's just something to think about. SCP-2399. SCP-2399, to be put simply, is a UFO that is going to wipe out Earth and all life on Earth. Pretty much all the space SCPs that are a machine are the exact same damn thing. So I don't think I might have put another one on the iceberg. I don't think I did though. But yeah, this to my knowledge was the first one, and the ones that came after this, they're basically just a copy of this with maybe slight variations done to them. Supposedly that red dot on the picture is the destroyer. I mean, I don't see anything. Do you? Yeah, no, this SCP is cool for what it is. It's just there's so many that just blatantly copy it that it's lost some of its luster, in my opinion. SCP-407. SCP-407 is a song that you listen to that transforms you into a forest plant thing. It's a very long SCP, and it's kind of violent in nature, so be aware of that. The Volgun made a video on it if you want to check that out. He made a good one on this. But yeah, that's in a nutshell. You listen to this song, the longer you listen to this song, the more horrible things happen to your body, and eventually you're not even human anymore. SCP-990. SCP-990 is one of the most interesting and well-written pieces of horror fiction I have ever seen. What this SCP is, it is a man who contacts you while you're dreaming. He will only contact you if you are a member of the Foundation. And he warns Foundation personnel about a certain event that's going to take place in the world. Now, this man cannot be found while you're conscious. Whether he lives in our world or another dimension entirely, he cannot be found. Only in dreams can this man be spoken to. And so that's exactly what the Foundation did. They put a researcher under, and the researcher met the man, and the man was aware. He said, "Is this an interview conducted by the Foundation?" The doctor said yes. In this interview, the doctor said, "Why are you threatening members of the Foundation?" The man in the dream said, "I'm not threatening, I'm warning." Warning of what? "I'm warning you that SCP Redacted is going to end the world." The doctor says that SCP doesn't exist. There's no SCP with that designation. Of course not. She hasn't been born yet. Then the interview ends. There's a little bit more to this, but for how short of an entry it is, it's simply brilliant. And my hat is off to this author. SCP-835. We went from horror to gross. This is going to make your stomach upset. This one has a content warning on it on the website. I'm not going to go in depth here. So yeah, basically what this one is it's a sea creature. I believe it's a sea creature. And the scary thing about this one is there's a tale of a researcher and a soldier, I believe, getting digested by this creature, and it goes into some detail, and it's really gross, and hearing it will make your stomach churn. The Exploring series made a whole video on this, so if you want to watch that, go ahead and check it out. SCP-823. SCP-823 is otherwise known as the Carnival of Horrors. It is a carnival where if you approach it, you will be shot and terminated by sniper fire. That is how dangerous it is. A lot of bad things happen inside this carnival. I'm not going to go into too many detail. Feel free to look into it for yourself. But it's some pretty scary stuff. The Volgon made a video on this one. Feel free to check that out as well. SCP-1506. SCP-1506 is pretty damn scary. This SCP is a cloud made of spiderwebs. What's inside that cloud made of spiderwebs? Any type of spider you can think of, from black widows to Brazilian wandering spiders to harmless little jumping spiders. If you're scared of spiders, I would stay away from all clouds. You never know which cloud might be the spider cloud thing, whatever it's called, SCP-1506. Just avoid the clouds. SCP-3519. This is another lengthy SCP. In a nutshell, what this one is it's a message that was broadcast through television, radio, internet, any form of media you can think of, that said the world is going to end at a certain date. It's not 2012. And that committing self-unalive is much better than the fate that's going to bestow you when this world ends. And presumably a lot of people did exactly that. So yeah, like I said, there's a lot more to this one. If you want to look into it more, feel free. I'm not going to go super in depth here because I don't want this video to take up the rest of my 20s. SCP-2086. SCP-2086 is a Keter SCP. It is a creature that takes the form of a school bus and possibly another kind of bus. And there's more than one, to my knowledge. And it eats people that go and ride the bus. Yeah, there's some more to this one, but that's it in a nutshell. It could be any bus out there, any bus at all. Pretty damn scary when you think about it, especially since it's Keter. There's no distinction between this bus and a real bus. There's no way for the Foundation to find out what it is. They can terminate it, to my knowledge. You know, I believe it's kind of like a bug type thing. They can take out the bug with enough firepower and stuff, but the hard part is finding the bug. So yeah, try to sleep tonight. Alright, that was horror. I'm running out of stuff to say for these, sorry. The Pain Tier. You know, normally I would say stuff is going to get really, really bad from here, guys, and stuff like that. But I don't remember a lot of these SCPs that I designated, and so yeah. Viewer discretion is advised. SCP-2521. This is a cool SCP. It's very well done. I'm gonna do this SCP in the style that fits its canon. There is no SCP-2521. There's a man named Roger. If you talk about the man named Roger will come and get you and take you away. If you write the man named Roger's name, he will come take you away. If you tell somebody about Roger, Roger will come and take you away. Basically, you want to do everything in your power to erase the knowledge of Roger from your mind, because if you share that with anybody, he will come and take you away. And also the Volgun made a video on this too. Feel free to check that out. SCP-2317. So there's quite a bit of lore that goes into this SCP. I'm going to do the short version. This SCP is related to an godlike entity from the SCP Foundation known as the Scarlet King, which is the demon king of all demons. We'll just call him that. He's a really bad demon. This SCP either is the Scarlet King or is a avatar of the Scarlet King, and it's currently contained by one chain out of 7. 7 of the chains that used to contain him have been broken. There's one chain left. It is about to break, and it's containing this demonic demon thing that's really, really bad. And at this time, the Foundation has no knowledge or a way to recontain this demon, nor do they have any knowledge about how to fix that one chain that's about to break. So this guy is a ticking time bomb that's going to wipe us all out. Again, try to sleep tonight. SCP-2852. This one is very long as well. This one has to do directly with cicadas. This one's called Cousin Johnny. I'm going to give you the short version. There's 3 different events that can go on when Cousin Johnny is around. Cousin Johnny isn't actually related to you, but if he enters your family, everybody in your family will be, oh yeah, Cousin Johnny, we've known him our whole lives, and da-da-da-da. Cousin Johnny, in my opinion, is actually some kind of demonic cicada thing, and what it does is, depending on the event, it eats children or it eats other people, part of your family, and it makes like all of your family eat a person and some other really bad stuff. And yeah, we'll just stop talking about it there. The Volgun made a video on this. Yeah, once again, the Volgun's like the main SCP YouTuber. Alright, let's move on. SCP-3547. SCP-3547 is an SCP that I hope the author does a lot more with, because it's really cool. SCP-3547 is an entity that appears to someone in their subconscious, much like another SCP that we talked about earlier. This SCP is known as the Night Emperor from those who have made contact with it. The Night Emperor's goal is to enter our world. Anybody who has made contact with it wants to bring it into our world, and when it gets to our world, it's gonna do whatever a Night Emperor does, which is probably something really, really bad. The Foundation urgently wants to recontain this SCP. I think that's because they know about the Night Emperor. They're just not sharing that knowledge, and that it's really, really bad stuff. So yeah, let's move ahead. SCP-3007. This is a complex SCP. I'm going to do my best here to summarize it short and have it make sense. So this SCP is a phenomenon that the Foundation is currently trying to contain. It is an infohazard phenomenon, which means it is very easily able to affect people. And so when a person is affected, they are transported to a different place. The place is known as SCP-3007-3. In this place, there is a large black pillar in the distance. If you go to this black pillar, there's going to be a lot of dead things there, and the smell is overwhelming. The higher up you go, the worse things seem to get. At the top, there is a large dead thing there. And then, if I'm remembering correctly, there is a vision of a red object coming to a sphere that looks a lot like planet Earth, and the red sphere lands, and then this red spreads out over planet Earth. Now, there's a few different theories to what this SCP is and what it's talking about. My personal theory is that it's SCP-610, which I haven't discussed yet. It's on the next layer of the iceberg. I guess I should have planned that better, but it's okay. But my theory is it's SCP-610 coming to Earth, because that's kind of what happened when SCP-610 was first discovered. But I'll get to that more later. Volgan made a video on this too, as did the Exploring series. So, yeah, if you're interested, go take a look. SCP-2995. What this SCP is in a nutshell, it is a sphere of radiation. And if this sphere breaks out, it is capable of ending the world rather quickly. That is it. That is a short version of this. There's more to this. Yeah. Pretty sure the Volgan made a video on this one too. SCP-5000. SCP-5000 is probably one of the best tales on the SCP Wiki. SCP-5000 takes what the Foundation stands for. Everything that the Foundation does, they do to protect humanity, and they do a lot of questionable, dark, and unethical stuff to protect humanity. This tale says, what if they did the opposite of that, and they released all these anomalies they've contained in an attempt to wipe out humanity, which, by the way, would be very easy for them to successfully wipe out humanity. But that is what this tale is what if the Foundation stops protecting, starts releasing. And so yeah, it's a very long entry, a very long tale. The Exploring series made a really good video on this, so be sure to check that out. Alright, that was the pain tier. I think it's pretty safe to say that all those SCPs would have caused you pain, be it physical or mental. The death tier. Most of the things on this iceberg, if not everything on this iceberg, can kill you very easily. You gotta be a hardened badass to go up against anything here and not be killed. The things on this tier, though, can kill you even easier, man. SCP-2470. SCP-2470 is a very complex and long SCP once again. I'm going to shorten it immensely. It is a ZK class end of the world scenario in the form of an entity, I guess. What a ZK class end of the world scenario is, a K class scenario in the SCP Foundation basically means the world's going to come to an end in some way. Now, the way the world could come to an end varies depending on the SCP in the scenario. The one I talked about earlier, the really creepy looking one that lays eggs, and it can lay enough eggs to take over as the dominant animal on the planet, quickly replace humans as the most populated creature on the planet. That is an example of a K-class scenario. It would be a species dominance shift scenario. XK is typically the world being destroyed, and ZK, which is what this entity causes, is basically the universe being destroyed. Very bad stuff. SCP-610. SCP-610 is the one I mentioned just a little bit ago, revolving the red approaching the sphere that looks like planet Earth. This is what I think that red is. What SCP-610 is a fleshy virus that is currently contained in a small village in Siberia, or I guess I should say it's uncontained. This virus is very rapidly moving and able to infect living things very easily. As far as humans and animals go, It can infect them simply by touching them. It starts out with a red rash, and it slowly gets worse and worse from there until you end up like that flesh thing right there in the picture. As far as plant life goes, I don't think it has the same effect on plant life, so I guess that's a silver lining in this horrible scenario. But this thing could very easily wipe out the planet Earth if it was left unchecked, or if people were just allowed to roam and wander freely. It would continue to infect person after person after person after person. You get the idea. SCP-1730. SCP-1730 is once again very long and complex, but having watched so many videos on it and knowing so much about it, I can give you a short, fairly good summary. The SCP is basically just a tale. Probably this one is in debate with SCP-5000, I think, for my favorite SCP tale on the Foundation Wiki, but anyways, it's very good. Anyways, so what's happening is there is this machine down below that is actively warping reality at this location, and teams are sending them. These teams keep dying in a variety of different ways, and it eventually reaches its apex when the most common SCP-001 proposal, the Gate Guardian, fights a giant slug, leech, thorny creature, and they also fight the Deer God, which is going to be later on in this Iceberg. And yeah, that's where the peak is. If I'm remembering correctly, this whole scenario takes place in another dimension, and the first discovery of this SCP is through some kind of radio waves or something like that from that dimension. So yeah, like I said, it's very long, it's very good, and I highly recommend you look this one up. SCP-498. This is a very cool and unique SCP. What this SCP is, it is an alarm clock that every 11 minutes the alarm goes off. You have to hit the snooze when that alarm goes off, because every 11 minutes that the snooze is not hit, the volume increases by 4 decibels. Now, if you don't know anything about sound, join the club, because I don't know anything about sound either. I did some research before I made this video for this one. So, pain in the ear starts about at 125 decibels. So a jet taking off, if you're right there, without any hearing protection or with hearing protection possibly, that will hurt your ear. A 12-gauge shotgun blast gives off 165 decibels. That will hurt your ears, obviously. And you know, police sirens, certain musical instruments, stuff like that can hurt your hearing. Okay, now the loudest sound recorded on Earth was the Krakatoa volcano erupting, which it was at 310 decibels. All right, and if you were there when it went off, it would kill you. It would do something to your organs. They would break, or something bad would happen. Okay, it would not take long for this alarm clock to reach 310 decibels. I'm not going to do the math here, but you know, every 11 minutes for every 11 minutes would not take long at all. You keep going from there, who knows what would happen. The planet itself could just crumble from the noise of this alarm clock. So that's why this one is so far down on the iceberg. SCP-2845, otherwise known as the Deer, or I call it the Deer God. I mentioned this SCP just a minute ago. To give you the short version, this SCP can do whatever it wants. It doesn't seem to be too aware of what it's doing. The most spooky thing I've heard of it doing is turning organic people into pillars. Just, you know, transforming them into pillars, so that's kind of gross. But to contain this SCP, the Foundation does a very bizarre and scary ritual. If I remember correctly, it involves animal abuse, I believe child abuse, and some other bad stuff that I'm not going to go into here for obvious reasons. The Volgun has made a video on this, as has the Exploring series, and this is one of the most popular SCPs on the wiki, so there's plenty of resources for you to learn more about this one. SCP-2998. Okay, this one is a whole new level of complicated. So, the short version of this one is, there is an alien god, basically, and one of his subjects tried to overthrow him, or this subject did something the god really didn't like. So the alien god is now hunting this subject. Okay, and I believe that he captures the subject and he's torturing them, and the Foundation originally receives either like some kind of video or some audio message of this subject being tortured by the god or the god's servants or whatever it is. And some other weird, complicated stuff follows, and if I'm remembering correctly, these aliens don't have a physical form, they're more of a thought, and so that's why it's so scary. It's really hard to summarize short. Like, I've watched the videos on it and it's still kind of confusing, so just be aware if you want to look into this one more. It's very complex. Get plenty of sleep. Make sure your mind is firing on all cylinders before you look into this one. SCP-804. SCP-804 is this device right here in the picture. What this device does is, when it is activated and all the globes are moving, or everything is moving on the device, any man-made structure within, I believe, 100 meters rapidly deteriorates, and that includes human bodies. I don't know if this SCP is capable of fast forwarding through time or if it's some other type of method, but it is theorized that this SCP could wipe out all of humanity within a few weeks if it was left on. Yeah. SCP-2316. This one is really cool. That picture down there is an island in the middle of a lake with the trees. It's really kind of hard to tell what it is. Anyways, this SCP is a memetic hazard. What it does is, if you come near this location, you hallucinate it. People you know are drowning in that water, and you have an overwhelming urge to go in that water and save them, and you have to fight off that urge, because that urge will end you. Very quickly, it will end you. Okay? This is a very top secret location. It's a very classified SCP. A lot of containment procedures go into this one. It's very well written. I recommend you look at this one for yourself. SCP-2440. SCP-2440 is an old god. It has another name that I'm not even going to try to pronounce. This god gets more powerful the more people who are aware of it. You're familiar with cults? Well, this is a cult on steroids. Okay, if there's specific numbers, if less than 200 people know of it, it's not that big of a deal. If like 200 to 500 people know of it, then the god can possess one person for a short amount of time and, you know, do some bad stuff. If more than 1,000 people are aware of it or something like that, the god can manifest itself in a humanoidish form and do some bad stuff for a short period of time, like a half hour. If like 10,000 or more are aware of it, it can manifest for a longer period of time, like an hour, and it can bend reality and all that good stuff. If 100,000 people are aware of it, it can really do some damage, can be in a form for a long period of time, doing whatever it wants, lots of reality warping and stuff like that. And if over 1 million people are aware of it, then we are all screwed. It will be an XK class end of the world scenario. Alright, that was the death tier, and everything was capable of causing you death, that's for damn sure. We've talked about some really cool stuff on this iceberg so far. The final tier is called the Doom tier, and if you come across any of those SCPs, you are doomed. Alright, let's get started. SCP-3545. So I'm actually going to make a video on this SCP because it is the most complicated and difficult to understand SCP I have read so far on the wiki, and I've read a lot of SCPs. In a nutshell, this one is capable of triggering ZK class end of the world scenario events. And a refresher, ZK class means the universe is there ain't gonna be no universe anymore, son. Aight? SCP-319. SCP-319 is this device right here. Inside this device there is a small bubble. This bubble, the space inside this bubble is different from the space everything is currently existing in. And any matter that comes into contact with this bubble is immediately no more. Okay? And this bubble is expanding. Small expansions, but still expanding. You might know where this is going. After a certain amount of time, this bubble is going to expand so much that we will be wiped out, as well as the universe itself being wiped out. That's not good. 47. This is another one I might make a video on because it's so incredibly complex and lengthy. This SCP is a self-aware SCP that lies beyond our reality. Basically what happens is when this SCP is placed in a narrative, be that a book, a video game, movie, TV show, even a YouTube video, the SCP will destroy that narrative and then move on to another. When the SCP Foundation originally made the article about this SCP, it destroyed the article, and now the article is, I want to say vague about what this SCP really is. And that's the SCP kind of in a nutshell. Like I said, it's pretty complex and there's more to it, and I will come back to this one someday. SCP-2935. SCP-2935 is a very cool SCP. What this SCP is, it's some Foundation personnel receive a message from some other Foundation personnel. They follow this message to the source, and they find everybody is deceased in this world. Everything is dead. Every living thing is dead. So much so that there's dead bodies sitting in houses, but they're not rotting because there's no bacteria to get into the dead body to make it rot. So much so that SCP-682, I believe, is the number of the hard to destroy reptile, which if you're familiar with SCPs at all, I'm sure you're familiar with that one and how difficult it is to actually kill that thing. Yeah, that one's dead too. So there's some more to this one. My theory is that it's an entity that came into this reality and then just eliminated all life in this reality. Now, luckily, the Foundation people managed to somehow prevent this event from occurring in our reality, which is why we're all still here. But yeah, it's an excellent SCP. I recommend you take this one for a spin. SCP-3999. This SCP is one of the most terrifying in the entire wiki. This SCP is kind of a tale about a researcher, Dr. Tauren, I believe is his name, and an entity that he's been dealing with for a while. This entity is capable of warping reality and doing some otherworldly shit, and this entity basically just tortures him, kills him, brings him back to life, kills his family, brings them back to life, kills them again, stuff like that. And that's pretty much how the entire article for this SCP goes, is this entity doing stuff to Dr. Tauren, Dr. Tauren just kind of being forced to suffer through it. And yeah, I don't think there's anything happy in this one either. It's it's a very dark one. It's a very scary concept. This is one of those where you hear this and you think, man, my life sucks, but at least it's not this guy. At least I'm not Dr. Towrin. 2700. Alright, now we're going into the final few. These are the really good ones. SCP-2700 is very similar to another one we talked about, the one with the bubble, that every day this bubble is expanding a little bit and it's going to wipe us all out. It's kind of like that. This one is a machine that holds... It's hard to explain what it holds inside, but when this machine inevitably triggers fully and completely, it will spread across the entire universe and reverse the Big Bang. The Big Bang that created everything? Yeah, that Big Bang. So when this machine fully activates, everything that is now will be gone in, I believe, in an instant. And yeah, I don't know if the Big Bang will restart or if there will just be nothing. And when I say nothing, I do mean nothing. No stars, no space matter, no dust. Just black. Pretty scary to think about. The Volgun also made a good video on this one if you're interested in looking at that. SCP-3812. So you may remember I talked about the SCP earlier on this tier, the one that's capable of destroying the narrative, what it's written in. So this SCP is kind of like that, but on a much more powerful scale. This SCP exists in a reality above ours. So let's say I write an SCP-22, okay? This SCP-3812 exists in that reality above me. So it can change what I'm writing about SCP-22 that I'm inventing, which, by the way, I did not invent that SCP, I just picked a random number. But this SCP can control what I'm writing about this SCP that I'm creating on the wiki. And then 3812 can go a step above that and control someone who controls me, and I control what I write, and then a step above that, and so on and so forth. So this SCP can go, I don't even know what you call it, multiple reality levels above the one you're in right now, and control things way, way above you, like beyond what a god could do. It's really impressive creation. The author who made this, it's really mind-blowing. The Exploring series made a good video on this, and he said in his video, he said this SCP may be the strongest creature to have ever been created ever. And yeah, it very well could be, because I don't know anything else that is this powerful and capable of doing what this SCP can do. That being said, I dubbed this the scariest SCPs Iceberg, and there are two more that I think are more terrifying than this guy. SCP-231. Before we go into this one, I'm going to heavily censor what I say about this one because it is extremely unpleasant material. In this one traumatized me for quite a while, and yeah, there's some really dark stuff in this SCP that we're going to talk about, so viewer discretion is advised. Now, this SCP-231 is 7 girls who are dubbed the 7 Brides of the Scarlet King. I believe I mentioned him earlier. He's one of the old gods of the SCP universe. Anyways, so these girls were taking part in a sexual satanic ritual, the Satan being the Scarlet King, and each of these 7 girls was impregnated. Now, 6 of the 7 are deceased, and bad stuff happens every time one of these girls dies, okay? Or if one of these girls gives birth to the baby, quote unquote, that's inside her, something really bad happens. Progressively worse, you know, the first birth may have not been that bad, and then the 6th may have been catastrophic. So there's only one girl left, dubbed SCP-231-7. They cannot let her give birth, and they cannot kill her. So the only thing they can do is prevent her from giving birth. And mind you, the body wants to birth the child. The body wants to push it out. It doesn't want to stay there. This is not a normal pregnancy either. This is a Scarlet King hell demon pregnancy. So things aren't, 9 months, buy diapers, buy baby formula, love your husband scenario. This is every day you're going into labor basically every day. And so the foundation cannot let this baby be born. And so they do whatever it takes, whatever they have to do to prevent this baby from being born. It's called Procedure 110 Montauk, and you're not told anything about this procedure. It's said it's the worst thing you can imagine, and then even worse than that, so it's really left up to your mind to figure out what is happening to this poor girl. And there's been other stories and tales written about this SCP and this procedure. I believe in one tale they said we cannot put the poor girl out of her misery, and then there was one tale when a researcher went into her cell and tried to free her, and he was promptly terminated because he felt so bad for her. His humanity, his moral compass took over. He tried to free her, and they had to kill him, and she is still imprisoned. And it gets worse too. So because this girl goes through this pregnancy labor procedure every day, the body becomes accustomed to whatever is happening to her. So they have to give her what is called an amnestic, and what that is it gives you amnesia, hence why it's called an amnestic. So it makes her forget the procedure. So they give her amnestics every now and then, so she'll forget about it, and then when it's new, quote unquote, to her, she still gets the full effect of the procedure. So yeah, that's SCP-231. Very dark, very intense stuff, very scary stuff, very traumatizing, very well written. This SCP, it's theorized that it's directly related to SCP-231-7, the one that we talked about earlier, the demon with the 7 chains, the 7 brides are the 7 chains. All 6 of the chains are broken. There's that one left. This one pregnant girl. Some people theorize that thing is the Scarlet King. It seems similar, and in my head canon there is some relation, but I still hold 2317 as just an avatar of the Scarlet King and not the Scarlet King itself. But anyways, that's enough of this. Let's go on to the scariest SCP you've ever heard of. 4666. Now, this actually doesn't have a content warning on the official page on the SCP Wiki. I am giving it 1 because it's effing disturbing. Like, the last one I talked about was really bad. Okay, I think this one is worse. Alright, so this one, another cool thing about this one is nothing is redacted on the official page, which is very impressive. My hat's off to the writer. A lot of people, when they write SCPs, they'll redact, really important stuff like Operation 110 Montauk, for example. But this guy didn't redact anything. So it's all right there, blunt in your face for you to read. This one is a lot of torture and gore and bodily harm and bodily dismemberment and bodily making into objects and stuff. This is something right out of the sickest psycho's mind, is what this SCP is. What it is, SCP-4666 is a man that goes into houses at a certain time of the year, and it's currently a Keter class because the Foundation has no way of tracking it or capturing this anomaly. Anyways, at a certain time of year, it'll go to a house. Think every single time it will kill the parents in a very violent, gory, and brutal manner, and then it will take one or all of the kids. If a kid is not taken, the kid is not left alive, mind you. It's taken out as such a violent manner as the parents are. The kid that is taken is forced to make tools and toys and stuff out of other children body parts. And yeah, the actual article itself is much scarier than me just summarizing it, and I'm trying to be as gentle as possible. But it's some pretty bad stuff, and the article goes into description about what certain things are on the tool that was just made, and yeah, and it even goes into an interview with one of the girls that was rescued from where this SCP takes them. So yeah, it's a very disturbing read. It is a good read, but disturbing. If you like horror, this one's gonna spook you a bit. This one, as a fan of horror, this one stuck with me. This one stuck with me for quite a while. Anyways, everybody, that is it. The SCP Iceberg. The horrifying SCP Iceberg. There are a lot of really great, really well-written SCPs out there. If I missed your favorite, I'm sorry. I'm sure I will come across it someday. I'm always checking out SCPs. But enough about that. If you guys like the video, feel free to hit the thumbs up. If you want to see more stuff like this, feel free to hit the subscribe. You could even hit the notification bell. And thank you for watching. Have a great day.